Welcome to our coverage of ASUG Annual Conference and SAPPHIRE Now 2014. We are in the ASUG News Studio, which is sponsored by NTT Data, and we couldn't be happier, Courtney and I, to welcome Sully Sullenberger in here. As most of you know, he is going to be doing the keynote presentation for ASUG today, and there's going to be some fabulous things, and we're looking forward to. So welcome and thank you for coming by.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
Sully, we're going to start off with just, in our promotional video, you talked about a quote that the most important piece of safety on a vehicle is the pilot, a well-trained pilot. And I think our members in their work lives, by being an ASUG member, they invest in themselves, they give more, they realize that their moment can happen when they're least expecting it. I'm wondering, what do you say to people like that to keep them engaged, to keep them actively investing in themselves?
I think it's become an economic necessity now to do that. As the pace of change globally only accelerates, most of us cannot get through an entire working lifetime with only one skill set. We have to become lifelong learners, keep on learning, growing, stretching, sometimes reinventing ourselves. I've had to. And that pays great dividends. And the more and quicker that you can change, the more it becomes a competitive advantage, the more you're able to turn adversity into opportunity.
Right, it's a fabulous message.
Speaking of lifelong training and learning, something that resonates with you so much with me is that 60 Minutes interview you did, and you told Katie Couric, my whole life leading up to this particular moment was a preparation to handle that particular moment. Talk to me about that. What did you mean by that? And, just expound upon that.
Well, that was the first TV interview I'd ever done. And it was still very early on, very raw. But it was a very good one, and what I said to Katie was this, that one way of explaining this experience would be to envision making lifelong deposits. I've been making small, regular deposits throughout my life of education, training, and experience in this bank. And then on January 15th, 2009, when we were very suddenly confronted with this ultimate challenge of a lifetime, one we'd never anticipated, never specifically trained for, the balance in that account was sufficient that I could make a sudden large withdrawal. And we never know when that moment's going to come. Or as I might tell you now, I never knew on which 3.5 minutes my entire life might be judged.
And you delivered, for sure.
We had one chance to get it right, and we came together. And my other message is this, that when we lead well, when we create a culture of excellence and collaboration, when we work together collaboratively, there's little we can't accomplish.
One of the things reading about your history is you spent a fair amount of time studying aircraft accidents, seeing what pilots had done, right and wrong. And that's interesting correlation to our members because they are a part of these huge, complex, multi-million-dollar projects when things can crash and burn, literally, out millions of dollars. So do you see a parallel there that studying what happened obviously helped you? Do you think that can help our members as well?
I had done more than just be a pilot. I had tried to be the most complete expert at my profession I could. Or as my colleague, recently retired Coast Guard Commandant Thad Allen said when I interviewed him for my second book, Making a Difference, Stories of Vision and Courage of America's Leaders, he said that he thought that we had essentially done the same things in our professions, his in the Coast Guard and mine in aviation, that we had mastered our craft, but then we'd mastered ourselves. And so that lifelong learning is so important. And institutionally, it's important to have a formal lessons learned process in your organization, whatever it is. It's important to look at big data and see trends. If we don't do the hard work, if we don't debrief brutally honestly our failures and learn from them, there's nothing to prevent us from making those mistakes or similar mistakes in the future.
Man, you really must have spent some time on the show floor to bring up big data in this interview.
We didn't even
problem.
Well, aviation has gotten so safe that we can no longer look at only national safety data sets. We have to look at global safety data sets to pick out the real trends from the noise.
That's fascinating. So what role would software play in all of this? Well,
there is software that's used in many ways. And we look not only at technical performance, but human performance, because we know that in this complicated socio-technical system that we have in our cockpits, the technology plays an important role, but the human performance is an equally important role, and they have to work well together.
Speaking of your book and leadership, that's a lot of things that ASUG talks about is leading our teams. What do you think the biggest misconception that you found about leadership today is, and how do you address that when you talk to people?
The biggest misconception is that leadership and management are the same thing. They're not, but we need both. My good friend and longtime University of Southern California professor Warren Bennis, who has written 30 books on leadership, and I have talked about these issues at length. And Warren puts it very succinctly. He said that while you can manage things, people deserve to be led. So it's the responsibility of leadership, who sets the direction, who controls resources, to do it in a way that you create an environment where people can do their best work. And then you give them some feedback along the way that what they've done has mattered, it's contributed to the greater good.
Lead and not manage, it's fantastic advice. One of the other things you've pointed out in your writing too is this concept of goal sacrificing. Could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, and this is important in every aspect of our lives. What we did that day was, since the workload was so extreme, the time pressure so beyond belief, we had only, as it turned out, 208 seconds from the time we hit the birds and lost thrust in our engines until we had landed in the river to solve a problem we'd never seen before. Hadn't been able to train for, because our flight simulators aren't able to replicate a water landing. Believe it or not, the only training we'd ever gotten for a water landing was a theoretical classroom discussion.
Wow.
We were able to synthesize a lifetime of training experience, adapt what we did know and apply it in a new way. So, so I think that's what I'm talking about, is having clear goals in mind. And that's why having a deeper understanding of your profession, of your industry is so important, much beyond just the what and the how, but the why, because the why can motivate us and others. We know why it's important to do certain things, what happens if we don't, and it helps us to set clear priorities even in unfamiliar situations like this one that we suddenly faced.
That is fantastic advice. Thank you very much for coming into the studio. We look forward to your keynote in just a little while, and I'm sure the audience and our members are going to love it.
I'm looking forward to it. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. For more SAP customer stories, please check out our website, asugnews.com.